Welcome to another episode of MPLI Recall. This is a special episode. Sorry, medyo napatagal, but what's important is now we're here. It's been a long while, but we're finally in World Championship season. Tapos na ang MPL Invitational, pero hindi tayo magpapaiwan doon. We still have to discuss it, and we called in a little backup. We called in a special friend of ours from across the seas para tumulong dito. And with that being said, quick warning lang guys, alam kong sanay tayong Taglish ang show, but for today, we're gonna speak a little more English than we're used to, alright? Once again, my name is Leo, your host as always. Let's call in our guests. Let's bring them in. We have here my brothers, the Bears. We have here Naisu and Amon. Amon!
So,
there he is. Alright. It's Naisu, Renmar, and of course, our friend, Malaysia's best talent for Season 8. We have Gideon Q. Gideon, how you doing, man?
what's up, everybody? It's good to be back here. Hey, thanks for inviting me once again, Leo. It's great to meet, the We Bear Bros all together, all in one place. It's nice, but we've got a lot to talk about here, and more importantly, beautiful photo. Beautiful photo of what exactly it feels like.
Shoutouts to Ray Ash, a good friend of ours, a fan of the show, and a fan of these shenanigans. He made that little meme. But yes, Gideon, you were saying, man, how's life going for you?
Honestly, life is going pretty good right now. I think, a lot of things are keeping me busy, so it's good to be able to kind of take a break for a while and actually come on, do some content rather than doing just some really boring stuff, just answering emails, replying, writing articles and stuff like that. It's good to be back on camera for once.
I love it, dude. You know what? This is the calm before the storm for you. I mean, you're bound for M3. These are the last few moments wherein life is yet to just go crazy. Because again, quarantine is something else. The flights are something else. Flying in the pandemic, I can only imagine. But let's check in with the bros, man. Renmar, where'd you come from, man? At some point, I just saw Amon. Where were you? What were you doing?
I wanted to make a little bit that, yeah, Amon was there first,
that
and then I'd
his
show up
passive?
right there. Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were triggering his passive.
Yeah,
I was gonna say I see a little.
because he disappears. Yeah. You see what?
I see a little
What is
version
that
also.
little
Like,
thing? What is
yeah,
that
there's
little-
like a little version
Oh.
of you.
Because that's the face of a gargoyle, and I just decided to put my face on there, so it's there also.
There you go.
All right. Okay. All right. A little too creative for my day just started, by the way. Nice. So how are you, man? I see that you're I see that you're enjoying a little bit of the fine life. What's going on, man? How you doing?
Talking about the secret lab chair. We need an MPL one. I'm joking, but dude, it was good. Yeah, I went to travel. I went to Surigao for people in the Philippines. That was my first time there. It actually I missed watching MPLI live because I couldn't get a good signal. So I was either watching in 144p or I would just try to watch and then it would cut out. So actually when I got back, I was like, okay, I got to catch up on this. And especially with being on here, I was like, I had to binge watch as much MPLI as I could, even though I already knew kind of, what happened. But it's good to be back.
All right. Nice that you caught up, and I totally understand, man. The beach life, internet's just not as good when you're smelling the breeze. Did you swim? Did you get to swim?
Yeah, I did. I got stung by a jellyfish too. It was quite the experience.
Nice.
Okay.
The full experience.
The full experience.
Sana all. Real quick,
Sana
let's say
all.
hi to our friends Cardo Dalisay, MPL Insider Man, Mike L, Neil Joshua. Oh, Uwami is here. Uwami's tuned in. Thanks for the stars, bruh. Kilua is tuned in as well. We have here Sam, JMTZ, Laila, and Carwell. Gideon, I'm so happy because you have so many Filipino fans, bro.
Hey, I appreciate it. I appreciate all the Filipino fans who bothered coming along to, watch the English broadcast. We don't exactly get the most coverage, but hey, when we do get the coverage, we gotta take what we can get. Take what we can get.
English.
Woo!
Your squad.
Let's check in on what we're talking about today. Here's a quick run through of our topics for the day. We're gonna be doing Filipino teams report cards at MPLI. We're going to be talking about Malaysia and how they can come through in the World Championships. We're talking about Indo Pride as well. They did win the damn tournament, so we got to talk about that. As well, we're doing some guest coin. But first, let's go ahead and do a quick recap. What exactly happened at MPLI? The tournament was what? A week and a half ago? Here's what the brackets look like. Again, Naisu just binged as much of this right when he got back to Civilization. I did not expect that we would go through this so quickly, man. 5 days of coverage was way too short. Renmar was there. Did you feel like it was 5 days?
Actually, no. You're right. The days felt like it went by really quickly. Maybe it's because, well, Wolf and I were the analysts on the Tagalog stream, and so maybe if you were casting it, but then you said it felt short, so I guess, yeah, it just didn't feel like a really long event. It was very eventful. So many great things happened all throughout MPLI, but it went by really quickly, and there were some long games, so it's surprising.
Gideon wrote some articles about the tournament. That means you kept your eyes on it. I know you didn't cast much. You were busy with the draw show for the World Championships. What did it feel like as a spectator?
Honestly, it felt kind of weird. I'm not gonna lie, it felt kind of weird sitting on the sidelines and not actually having to cast for the event and preparing for it. But I felt like there was still a need to. So even though I was just watching it, I was doing like the exact same amount of research I would for an actual cast, sitting down, opening up the different MPL websites, looking at the stats of each regular season, what they were doing, and all that good stuff. And I felt like, especially for MPLI, this is like our first taste of like international tournaments, you know, inter-country combat, and just getting a good idea and a feel for everybody's power levels.
I like it.
Honestly, I was just excited. Now I'm so excited to see the Brazilians and the Russians and the Turkish people to play, because MPLID just feels like a little family reunion. It's like just the C countries, like, oh, it's you again. Let's go ahead and jump into the recap. Let's see what happened from day 1 to 5. Renmar, tell us all about the first day of competition.
Sure, man. MPLI Day 1 started off with Alter Ego in orange. Games 1 and 2 was a competition of who could play the better YSS, Linkeza or Chelly Boy. But they both got MVPs, but since Chelly Boy got like 13, 4, and 12 in game number 2, yeah, I guess you could say he was the better YSS there. But this was a surprising series because of Orange, how they won it. They held on. They turned it around late into the game 1. That's how they won. But then Alter Ego would win the next 2 games. Echo versus Aura was a really fun watch. But if you're a fan, like for the MPL Philippines fans, the fans of Echo, this was a heart-stopping series because it felt like almost every series, Echo were just coming back from behind. Game number 2 was massive. The world or the SIA region teams got reintroduced to the Jeet Kune, Dawn, and Raflesia. Look at that. That's one of the main reasons why Echo was able to win game number 2 and force game number 3. Raflesia was the MVP there. This was the final Lord fight at the end of game number 3, where it was still a really close game. Aura looked like they could end it at some times, but that final Lord fight was massive, which, of course, Echo won. Now, RQ versus EVOS ID. This was a fun watch, but I expected a little bit more from the Indonesian El Clasico. I expected 3 games, but RRQ just went out there with full power. EVOS ID had to rock a different setup for their roster. I guess maybe that's why they were a bit shocked, or their system was shocked a bit. And then BTR versus Geek Fam. BTR was just on a whole nother level. It was a stomp. Dude, Bigatron Alpha looked ready to go, ready to win. Although, if I'm not mistaken, game number 2 was much better for BTR, but yeah. For Geek Fam Indonesia, but then BTR just took control and didn't let go.
The thing about BTR is we were all expecting that in the absence of Renbo, they would be a little weaker. They would. I was trying to look for a better word. Honestly, I didn't want to say the word weaker, but we weren't expecting much from BTR. But this whole Matt and Max connection from the Gold in the Jungle, this seems to have pushed them far enough. Like, legit. They made it all the way to day 4. They made it to the quarterfinals. They dug deep. So, I don't know. Is it just me, or did BTR feel like they were, besides the old Indonesian El Clasico, was BTR the surprise of the day? Or was it just me? I really loved how BTR showed up here.
Yeah, I guess you could definitely say they were a surprise, especially when we get to talking about them more later on. They brought out some really awesome surprise picks there in one of their games, especially against SYS. So yeah, they were surprised, considering also how the Indonesian casters they talked to them about us and how they kept their expectations low for BTR, but BTR did good.
Yeah. Day 2 is going to be more interesting. Here we see one of the grand finalists for MPLMY. But first, let's talk about Orange. Orange Esports gave AE a run for their money. Gideon, what's Orange Esports like in the regular season? Because AE went really deep, man. AE went all the way to the semis.
I think this, honestly, Orange Esports during the regular season in MY, they were playing a lot more consistently. They were playing a lot more confidently, and I think, you know, a lot of it has to do with just the information that they had at hand. You can tell by this game, especially when they were up against Alter Ego. Yes, they did kind of pull the distance to try and get it to all 3 games, but unfortunately, they still dropped out in the end. They just don't have a lot of international experience, especially when it comes down to the big international stages, MPLIs, MSCs, even M3s. They haven't really gotten too much experience just yet. So I think, you know, OE at that point, of this point of time, was really, really young. However, the players show a lot of potential, and especially against a veteran team like Alter Ego, who just continuously, somehow, performs well in international tournaments and make it look really, really easy. I don't know what to say, man. I don't know what to say, but OE, a lot of potential in all their players.
Okay. If OE is a younger team, if OE is someone who can still grow, Day 2 will see a team that's really been around. Day 2 will see a team that's been just dominating Malaysia for the longest time. Nice to tell us all about day number 2 of the MPLI.
All right, going into day number 2, you guys were saying that it felt like it was super fast, right? Well, imagine trying to congest all these games and series in like one day. But basically, going into day 2, see you soon. Quite the underdog, I feel like, going in, and you know they had to go against Todak, and you know it started off well. I mean, it was a 2-1 series, so very interesting there because you know you see the underdogs going against Todak, and it was a 1-1, I believe, at one point, and then of course, you know the series end up getting taken 2-1 there. So very interesting in that matchup. But then you go to RSG. This is actually one that I was really interested to watch because I was a very big fan of RSG Philippines. And now you get to see them go head-to-head versus their Singaporean counterpart, right? And one thing that I think is awesome about these international stages, these international tournaments, is, especially for the newer players, they get to experience those other kind of metas, the play styles, the stars of other teams in other countries. You know, we got to see Demon Kite perform all throughout the MPL Philippines season, and then you get to see him perform here on the MPLI stage and the whole team as a whole. So they, you know, that was fun to watch, honestly, to go back and just watch that. And then you have Onyx PH versus Omega, which we've seen them battle it out here in the Philippines before. Kind of expected, as I even rapped for Omega, you know, but you know what? Onyx Philippines takes that one because, you know, we just saw how strong Onyx Philippines was, especially during the regular season. Omega, not to say they're not a strong team. I mean, they got, you know, key players, especially the Chak Mamba surprise that they have available to them. But, you know, it's just they didn't get it together, I would say, to go head-to-head with a team like Onyx PH. So, and then to finish the day, it was, of course, RBG versus Next Play EVOS. I think there was a lot of expectations for Next Play EVOS, but at the same time, if I remember right, they were missing 2 players. They were missing like 2 key players, H2O and Renajay. Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, they missed both of those, and I think those are obviously 2 big key components to Next Play EVOS, and you know they get 2-0'd and out of MPLI there. So very interesting day 2, though.
So painful. You reminded me of how very next play Evos they played there. I have to be honest, that was so painful to watch, and to dare say even cast. Let's talk about the Todax See You Soon matchup. Gideon, is this what you expected? I mean, this is the Cambodian champion. What happened to Todax?
Look,
here?
I'm not gonna lie, we kind of threw. We definitely kind of threw there. Could we have done better? Absolutely. I think that, you know, the Cambodian champions as of right now, I would say that they're a lot more consistent in terms of the identity of their style. They know what they want to do. They come in with a strategy, they execute on the strategy. Todak, completely different, you know? I would say that arguably, even though y'all would think that the next play EVOS matchup was kind of disappointing, even though they were missing 2 players, the same can be said about Todak, because what they did is that they loaned a player from our previous champions last season in Season 7, RSG Malaysia, which was Lexia, to play in the jungle role. Chiku, as of right now, he is in this awkward position where it's very exhausting for him to actually be the shot caller for the team. Because as you play the jungle, your main role is to kind of watch the rest of the map. Because half the time, you're just hitting jungle creeps. You're not really having to quote-unquote kite them most of the time. You can just do that on muscle memory. The rest of the time, you're just looking around the map, seeing how to kind of attack your opponents and look for different advantages. Chiku is getting really tired of that, right? So he wants to go into the gold lane where things are a little bit more linear and where he can focus on just dominating his lane, because now the meta is moving away from like hyper carry junglers to kind of push the momentum and push the game forward, now more to a more scaling centric side laners, especially in the gold lane, and having your EXP laner kind of help you either pull away attention from the bottom opposite side of the map, or to, you know, put more oil into the gears to speed things up. Either or, this wasn't exactly the Todak that we were hoping for. I think all Malaysia was a little bit disappointed, especially in Game 3. I think that one was the most obvious, where you're seeing like, oh yeah, we got a Paquito jungle plus like a mid lane Cho. Ooh, it was really awkward. And I mean, if we're talking about whether we're trying to evolve the meta, yes, but also, is this the right way? You gotta fail a couple of times before you have that eureka moment.
So Game 3 was not exactly pure Todak. That wasn't what everyone was expecting. And there's an interesting part here. There's a whole loaning a player situation. We'll talk more about that later when we put a spotlight on the Malaysian metagame and what these 2 teams are bringing to the table. Let's go into day number 3 here. Renmar, tell us all about that first matchup. It's again another Filipino heartbreak story. We're starting with RSG versus Echo.
Filipino heartbreak story, but RSG versus Echo, again, I nerded out about it before their match. Still one of my favorite matchups. RSGPH still undefeated against Echo in terms of Series 1, but all their games have gone to 3 series. And I can't wait to see them just play against each other. We saw the best of the best when it comes to both squads. We got to see Kenji shine. We got to see Curtizi shine. We got to see Iman shine. It was just a clinic. And I feel like these 2 teams really represent the Philippine meta and the Philippine playstyle well. RSGPH won it, but Echo, man, they fought really, really well. Alter Ego versus RBG was just domination. Leo Murphy and Udil woke up, and they were on a mission to win it for AE, and they did just that. RQ versus Onyx PH. Happy if you're an Indonesian fan. RQ fan, sad if you're an Onyx PH fan. Game number 1, Onyx PH was in control for almost the entire game. But then at one point, R7 got like a 3-man pin down with the Falling Star Moon. That turned it around late. And then controversial happenings in game 2 where you could say or you could see that Onyx didn't react favorably to that Low Yi first pick as one of their first picks. So it's safe to just assume that it was a mispick there. But of course, not using that as an excuse. RRQ played like the kings that they are. That was really a fun match for them. And then for BTR versus See You Soon. See You Soon, this was, I feel like they needed to go through something like this. They needed this experience of going up against a strong Indonesian team. Hopefully they bounce back for M3. I know how much a lot of people love the underdog stories and love See You Soon. They see them as the next Burmese ghouls. But definitely after what they went through versus BTR, there are things that they need to iron out, things that they need to refine. and hopefully this experience does help them out with that.
Yeah, we started with a heartbreak, RSG versus Echo. It was a good match, but again, elimination for a Filipino for sure. And then we closed with a heartbreaker because the underdog of the whole damn tournament got eliminated by the friggin' robots. So BTR was a dirty job, but someone had to do it somewhere, somehow. And that brings us to the quarters, all right? After 3 days of the group stage, we go to the quarterfinals. And now, finally, our champions see play. And the first match here is a Malaysian team versus MPLID Grand Finalists. We're starting with RRQ versus Team SMG. Nice to tell us all about these matches because we got a lot of sweeps this day.
Yeah. Definitely. It was, again, going back and reviewing this whole day was and then looking up the teams too, because that's the thing. As I'm new to the scene and I had to do a lot of research, right? So seeing these two teams, RRQ, obviously a dominant team, and SMG as well. SMG, I believe, getting sweeped. They were the Malaysian champs, so, but RRQ, the power, it's crazy because Indonesia is such a strong region. So, you have, I think they got second place in Indonesia, season 8, but still RRQ dominant there. And it's a great way to open up that day number 4. But on top of that, you have Alter Ego versus Evo Singapore, right? I've actually, when I first started watching MPL Indonesia, one of the first teams that I really had my eye on was Alter Ego. I loved watching Sally Boy, Leo Murphy. Those are two names I always heard, even playmakers for them. So very strong match there. They go 2-0 versus Evo Singapore. And then we go to Blacklist versus BTR. And I was sitting in Surigao looking for Twitter updates because this was the moment that everybody was like, Blacklist 2-0's BTR, the hope of the Philippines, going into the final day and everything. So it was, well, I guess RSG was after them, but when Blacklist won and then after this whole day happened, all I saw on Twitter was Blacklist, the hope of the Philippines going through. I was rooting for RSG Philippines 2 versus Onyx Indonesia, but I kind of had a feeling based off, what we've seen from Onyx Indonesia, that RSG was going to have a hard time, right? But still, super impressed with the way that RSG still played, even though, Indonesia won, they still got to win against them. That's huge, like I said, just in general for RSG Philippines, especially on an international stage. Again, you're talking about a lot of these players, their first time going against international competition, and on a stage like this will do a lot for them carrying over into the succeeding seasons, basically, and I think that's huge for them. So for RSG to take a game against Onyx Indonesia was a huge ego boost, I feel like, for them, experience boost for them. But of course, it closes it out with Onyx, going into the grand final day. So, and then finding out, like I said, your hope in the Philippines goes into Blacklist International. And I remember sitting in Surigao on the beach, literally being like, yo, that's going to be a good day. Too bad I can't watch it live.
I believe that one game against Onyx ID was just Kingslayer things. They needed to take one game away from Onyx to demand respect, and they did. But of this day, honestly, what really surprised me was that opening sweep. Team SMG, they got swept by RRQ, but they in turn swept Todak in the grand final. So where was that SMG? Gideon, where was that SMG when that happened?
Well, I think you have to understand that Team SMG, as of right now, they are another unique winner coming in from for MPL MY. We haven't had like 2 wins in a row for anyone or back-to-back champions in MY for a very long time. It's still pretty much a fighting ground for any Malaysian team. So them coming into their very first international tournament here, especially going up against someone, and I don't know what to say, but like you kind of got to give them credit for like creating the group of death right off the back in Group D. So, I mean, you're going to get a strong team one way or another, and I think RRQ was by far one of the toughest to deal with personally. So it is a little bit of a game of rock paper scissors, but Team SMG very much clearly isn't at the same caliber as some of these top class teams like RRQ. I would also make an argument for against AE as well, but I would have loved to see them actually go up against someone like See You Soon, or maybe even Next Play EVOS. Arguably, one of the RSGs would have been really fun to watch, but overall, Team SMG, when it comes down to having a cool mental, that's something that they can deal with. But in terms of just overwhelming pressure, where every single one of their plays are being shut down, like how RRQ generally had a vendetta, mainly for the Team SMG coach. A lot of the players are like, yeah, he used to mentor us, now we're gonna get him back. That's what you get, you know. So it was sort of expected in this particular situation. SMG still has a long way to go, but hopefully by M3, they should be at a nice, polished caliber.
Looking forward to see how they evolve and how they change. We'll talk more about that later. But let's go into the grand finals day. This is day 5 of the whole MPLI. And this is the last 3 or 4 teams. 4 teams, actually. Last 4 teams in the competition. And we're starting with Blacklist versus RRQ. And Naisu, I believe this is the day after you found out that Black was the only representative left. Tell us all about it. Let's look at the replays.
Yeah, so going into the last day, we have RRQ versus Black. And, you know, going from a viewer standpoint and then even a caster standpoint, I didn't really know. This was a toss-up for me because both teams were just incredibly strong throughout their own respective regions and seasons. And you want, like, my initial question was how useful or successful will the Ube strat be versus the way that RRQ plays? And, you know, we see them, it goes, 2-1, I believe, for the series. It was a lot of action. And I think the that's the crazy thing. When you only have like that one team fighting for a country, right? You have everybody sitting on the edge of their seats for a Blacklist to pull it out. And then you go into Onyx Indonesia versus Alter Ego, I believe, was actually the next one. And, you know, again, Onyx Indonesia, very strong team. They go 2-0 versus Alter Ego. And leading into the grand final game, I mean, this is the crazy thing about the grand final match for this whole tournament was the average times. I mean, we talked about a lot of the times during Season 8 games taking a lot longer, I feel like, especially with the way they play. And I don't know if this was an effect of the international stage, but these games, if I remember right, watching them, they were probably around 15 minutes, 15, maybe 17 minutes for the most part for these games. It goes 3-1, Onyx Indonesia versus Black. And there were some very minor mistakes that Blacklist made, which, you know, gave up some of the games and crucial moments for Onyx Indonesia. But again, just two teams just matching. I feel like Onyx Indonesia and Blacklist are very close together in terms of strength, in terms of play style, in terms of key players. But the thing is, Onyx Indonesia, they just have a certain type of tempo and decision making that makes them stand out. Whereas Blacklist, let's be honest, they rely heavily on the Ube strat, and a lot that we've talked about it before too during our own season, that if teams just figure out how to decode the Ube strat or decode the Blacklist code, they're gonna have a hard time because they have to, you know, that's what they're known for. And so I feel like Onyx Indonesia, one of those teams that just, they're so versatile at what they do that they were able to utilize that and then take over what Blacklist is known for. And I think that's a good thing because we've heard it from Venus before that sometimes they need to lose to be able to adjust and come in with a new idea. So I'm hoping then in M3, right, we're gonna see something new.
Yeah. Always again looking forward to the World Championships here. You brought up a very interesting point. Average match time at MPLI was under 20, and story is very far from what we actually have in the Philippines regular season, wherein average game time seems to be like 24, 25. Gideon, what's the average time over at MY?
Average time in MY anywhere between average, I would say 15 to 16 minutes.
Dang.
So I guess it was really the clash of just international metas that really just put it at a middle ground. Because again, I don't know why Filipino games last so long, bro. We're playing best of threes, but it looks like a best of 5. Because again, our games go up to 30, 35, and let's not even get into pauses. But yeah, basically that's what happens at MPLI. That's how we ended up crowning another back-to-back Indonesian champion, which is why our topics are set as such. We're gonna put a spotlight on the Indonesians, on the Malaysians, of course, as well. Coming up next, the Filipino teams. We're gonna do a report card for them. Stay with us, because you guys at home, you can grade them as well. Prepare, because we're coming back with the PH teams report card. Stay tuned. This is MPLI Recall.